and Randy Moss, without even really being able to run, as he shoots the moon to the
pass, pumps to the left, 8 seconds left. He gets away from the pressure, fires to the end zone. It's caught! It's Greg Lewis! Oh my heavens! Greg Lewis's first catch has given the Minnesota. Ball's out, picked up by the Vikings. Chelsea getting ready to swing for the race. Way ball Chelsea. No flags. Touchdown Minnesota. Steps into it. Pass is caught.
Four,
Touchdown. Unbelievable. Vikings win it.
3, 2, 1, 0.
Yo, what's up, Vikings fans? Welcome to another episode here of House Calls, brought to you by Minnesota Sports Talk. Joining you is always, you got the Skull Doc here and Dave, and we may have a guest coming in at some point to join us during the show. Dave, how you doing, my guy?
Doing good. I feel like all the pressure's off. I do my off season, look at prospects. You kind of put my feet to the fire a little bit and gave me a few to look at. I'm literally looking at them as I'm talking right now. So I'm glad to be able to do this with you, man. It's great.
Hey, I mean, I love, the season, especially when the Vikings are balling and winning 14 games, but there's something about the offseason that just gets me going. I'm an off-season guy. I love draft season. I love free agency. It's a fun time of year. And we're going to spend this episode talking a lot of off-season. But before we get into that, I know who you're rooting for in the Super Bowl because I know who all Vikings fans are rooting for. But who do you think wins?
Just like the mayor in Philly, E-G-L-E-S. E-G-L-E-S. No, man, I'm going for Kansas City. I don't care if they win 5 in a row as long as they're beating the Eagles.
Yes, sir. If it ain't Vikings, let it be them, right? Because that means the Lions ain't winning it, the Packers ain't winning it, the Bears ain't winning it. So if it ain't us, go Chiefs, right?
Yeah,
but who do you think wins
I'm
the
the
game?
same as you. If you're new to my show or new to my channel, because this is a Skull Dog show. But if you're new to my channel, I'm 18, 19 years old, sitting in my dorm room and my 19-inch Zenith television, and I was introduced to the draft. And I sat in my dorm room for 3 days straight, just watching every little bit of that draft I could. And for me, I was hooked ever since. And I thought one day I'm gonna do something about it in a la YouTube channel.
Yeah, that 19-inch Zenith TV that weighed 60 pounds.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm gonna take the Chiefs in the Super Bowl. I think the Chiefs are gonna win. I think that they're gonna be able to slow down the Eagles' run game, and then Jalen Hurts is gonna make some mistakes. What are you thinking for the Super Bowl?
I'm favoring the Eagles.
Okay.
Just because I do believe in that unleashing the quarterback thing a little bit. I do think he's kind of held back his offense and decided to just let it fly. But Barkley's never been better, and they seem to be rolling all steam. Plus their defense is pretty good. It's just I would think Eagles would be favored just because of that, but I don't know. Do you know what the line is?
I'm looking at it right now. I was just going to ask you. So you would think the Eagles are favored, do you think?
I would think the Eagles are favored.
What would you guess the line to be?
1.5.
You are almost exactly right, my friend.
That's why I should be making shitloads of money in Vegas, but I'm not.
It's a 1.5 Chiefs favorites.
Oh, really?
You were right on the spread, just wrong team.
Damn it, Daniel.
And that's 49 and a half over under. When you look at the offense for the Eagles, I mean, they are 5th in yards, 29th in passing, but 2nd in rushing, 7th in points, 10th in third down percentage. Comparing that to the Chiefs are not a big yardage type of offense, but they score and they're really good on third down. So they keep the drives moving. defensively, the Chiefs are 8th in yards, 8th in rushing, 4th in points, but they're 26th on third down defense. That's kind
I
of
think they
surprising.
were on the incline when it comes to yardage and points towards the end of the season. I think
Yeah,
they were winning a lot of low scoring close games early on, but I think they really hit their stride late in the season.
I'd agree with you. So I don't know. I agree with Daniel in our comment section. He says never bet against Mahomes, especially in the playoffs, and I'm not going to. I'll be putting a wager on the Chiefs to win that game.
Yeah, I'm not a gambler. I mean, I want to be, but I'm afraid I'd get addicted. So, yeah, I don't know. I don't bet. Uh, I'm just kind of leaning on the Eagles. Do I want them to win? No, I just kind of lean on them. They got a lot to prove. Like I felt like they would have won that last Super Bowl if Ertz didn't fumble early in the game. I really thought they would have won that game if Ertz didn't fumble. I just
Well,
feel like he's not going to make the same mistake again.
let's move on now to the Vikings portion of the show, and let's start with the biggest free agent needs for this team, which everyone and their mom knows that right guard is a huge need. But we also know that interior defensive pressure, a stout defensive tackle who can win on a pass rush move, is sorely missing on this defense and has been for a really long time. And also, this team needs cornerback help as well. So, how do you rank those free agent needs in your mind? How do you rank those 1 through 3?
It's funny that I probably would have said D tackle last year. I'm flipped. It's got to be offensive guard, or that is a bigger need than defensive tackle. I just think Flores worked magic with the D line, and Redmond stepped up and stuff. And we asked, well, why don't we get in a big ass nose tackle? Why didn't we get back? Well, maybe Flores doesn't want one. I don't know. Maybe that's not his scheme. Maybe that's not his thing. Otherwise, we would go get one, I would think. Now, it might prove me wrong, but I felt like the D line probably outperformed the offensive interior line this year. So I'm ranking the offensive line a bigger need.
Mm-hmm.
Although I do feel like it improved. But I felt like the D line kind of stepped up a little bit better, and especially against the run. Now and then cornerback, that's one of those things where we can fill in with a vet, and we did pretty good filling in with the vets that we did. So we really want that number one. We really got to re-sign Byron Murphy. He really showed out. He showed he could definitely be at least a number two corner, and he sometimes play like a number one for us. So I really think we're not as desperate just because we seem to have found corners in the free agency pretty handily. But yeah, definitely O line, definitely O line,
Yeah.
especially for
So,
a rookie quarterback coming in.
yep. So it sounds like you put offensive line, whether that's offensive guard, center, and another offensive guard, just straight up
Right.
interior offensive line.
Yeah.
You put that as the biggest need, followed by the defensive tackle, followed by the corners, correct?
Right.
That's exactly how I would rank it too. And you talked about having a rookie quarterback, JJ McCarthy, come in. That's the biggest factor for me is you need to make this guy comfortable. You don't want a Caleb Williams situation where this guy's taking a ton of sacks and like ruining his development. And not only that, but the biggest area of improvement that I would like to see this Vikings team make is in the running game. Phil Mackey on his show today on Score North said that the Eagles had over 1,000 yards more than the Vikings before contact. And it's funny because Judd was like, as crazy as that stat sounds, I wasn't really surprised when you think about it. And I agree with Judd. Like when you watch the Vikings games, how many times would we think to ourselves, like there's just no running lanes. Like the running back is contacted right away at the line of scrimmage. And you watch some Eagles games or Ravens games or the Packer games, and there's these backs that were running 10 yards down the field before they were getting touched. And I'm like, well, that would be nice, right? Those kind of holes would be really nice. So for those reasons, I'm going to agree with you that interior offensive line is my biggest need for the Vikings. And the other factor is the Vikings scored just 9 rushing touchdowns all year long, which is just stupid. That's just terrible. They could not run the ball inside the deep red zone within the 10-yard line, and they knew it, and they didn't even try because they knew they were bad at it. And I don't even blame.
And the Eagles had 7 in one game.
Yeah. And I don't even blame
Jesus.
Kevin O'Connell for like not trying because he knows his personnel. He's not dumb. You know what I mean? It's not going to make sense to just run into a brick wall over and over. So to me, that's the biggest thing that needs to change is you need some guys up there who can win not only the run game, but in the pass game as well. And we just need to get better at offensive guard. We need to get better at center. And then with Darisaw coming back at left tackle, that should boost up your left guard, whether that's going to be Brandel again or there's talk about Rouse coming in and being the left guard potentially. So you might see like a competition there at left guard. I'd be fine with that personally. Now, I do subscribe to the idea that the offensive line is a weak link system. You just want to make sure that you have 5 competent guys and not one real bad weakness, a kink in the chain that the defense is just going to attack and attack. And in my opinion, Bradbury is a weakness. They know that he can't hold up to big defensive tackles. And so if you replace Bradbury and your left guard is, even average, you're fine. You're golden. And we're going to start cooking with gasoline. So I agree with you for all those reasons, Dave. Do you have anything to add to my thoughts there?
I mean, I'm not, obviously I think Bradbury's, competent. It's just that like you said, it's a glaring weakness when we're playing against a really high level D tackle. But yeah, we've been pretty lockstep on that.
I think he led the league in pressures again as a center at the center position. It just can't happen anymore. He's too small.
I think we led the league with 18% from the interior O line.
Yes, that's true. The Vikings had the most pressure through the middle in the NFL, and it's not hard to see, man. So we're in lockstep there. Second need, defensive tackle. Very obvious. The Vikings had no pressure up the middle unless they blitzed their linebackers, which they were successful at. But the problem is that opens a lot of zones. And that's where Jared Goff and Matthew Stafford beat them 4 times this year, right? There was times against those vet quarterbacks where we couldn't get pressure. We were rushing them, blitzing them, and they got the ball out right away. That kind of stuff works against rookie quarterbacks, young quarterbacks, or bad quarterbacks. But against those vet quarterbacks, it just wasn't a game plan that was going to work. And unfortunately, the Rams took it straight down our throat, like right down the field to score in the playoff game to put us down in a hole 7-0. So I think it's really important to find a defensive tackle who can pressure the quarterback without having to blitz your linebackers up the middle. I think that's going to do so much for Brian Flores and open up his scheme. And then just piggybacking off of that thought, a lockdown man corner or 2 would also free him up to do more pressure looks that he could feel comfortable doing. Which brings me back to your point of bringing back Byron Murphy. Would not mind if they did that. He's their best man corner, but I don't think that's his game. I don't think that he's made to play man-to-man, locked up man coverage necessarily all the time because he is a smaller guy. I would feel better paying DJ Reed if the money was equal, if I had to choose between one of those 2 guys. And then also I do believe that Jair Alexander is going to be a free agent. I think that the Packers will likely cut him for cap reasons. That might even be a guy as much as we like to clown on him. And his injury history is kind of tough, in terms of him not playing that second half of the year for the Packers. That might be a guy that the Vikings look at too, because he's a good man corner.
Yeah. And we've been pretty good about managing veterans when it comes to keeping healthy. So I'm going to be a good fit, but yeah, that's my one worry with him and being able to understand him during an interview. There's 2 worries I have.
Daniel brings up a great point here. Flores wanted a defensive tackle last year, got outbid on free agency with Christian Wilkins. The Vikings were absolutely in on Christian Wilkins. And in fact, I think I heard Darren Doogie Wolfson say that they were the second team. Like they lost the bidding war, but they were second in line, I think, for Christian Wilkins. And that's a team who did not have a lot of cap space last year. And we were able to bring in Gink and Grenard, Aaron Jones. We made the most of our money, but we did not have a ton of cap last year. So I agree that the Vikings know that that's a need. They want to fix that. And the good news is there's several options in free agency if you're looking to attack that in free agency, but there's also several options in the draft. And this is typically a position that's very hard to find in free agency or later in the draft because these guys are unicorns and it's very valuable. So it'll be interesting whether the Vikings fix this or try to fix this with free agency or the draft. But I do think they take at least one of these players via the draft or free agency.
Yeah. I don't know if this is like maybe piggybacking off what I said, maybe, and I was referring to specifically big nose tackle. Yeah, Wilkins is like 3'10", 6'4". He's more like what we, size wise, what we have, but ultra explosive and kind of a clown. But he's pretty. I don't
He's
know if
funny.
you ever heard him. I
Yeah.
don't know if and he did that. I don't know what you know about the whole finger thing that he did when he was in college, and he did it to I think Josh Allen. Yeah, he's a little bit of a clown and very interesting to listen to when he's mic'd up. But he's I think he would have been a good fit for us. And unfortunately, just God, you're gonna pay that much for a D tackle. It's just
Made a
some
lot of
crazy
money.
money there.
Yep. There's a few options at defensive tackle. There's a guy for the Cowboys, really hard name to announce. I think his first name's Osa. Last name starts with an O, and it's Nigerian, I think. But I believe he led the interior defensive tackle across the NFL with 60 pressures. So he's a great pass rusher. And then there's a guy for the Eagles. His name's escaping me, but he's rotational player with the Eagles, and he is a really good pass rushing grade. So he will be an option as well in free agency. There you go. Thank you, Dan. In the comments, he laid out that name there. And then, Dan, if you can think of the Eagles' name, the guy's name is escaping me. He's another option the Vikings may look at as well. And then in free agent or in the draft, there's a deep defensive tackle class with guys who can get after the quarterback. So it's kind of exciting. This is the second year in a row where it feels like the Vikings draft needs lines up really well with what's deep in the draft.
Yeah, it's what being told. I'm discovering it more and more as we go here. But is there another position that we kind of like you wouldn't mind dipping? And it's always good to have a position of strength and just add more strength. Is there a position out there that you kind of want to add more to also?
Yeah, two positions. Number one, running back. Very important that we had a running back. And I think they're going to draft a running back probably in the third round. There's going to be a lot of guys who normally would be a second round type player who dip to the third round just because of how deep this class is for running back. So very good class. And wide receiver is another sneaky need. Jordan Addison is going to be suspended 2 or 3 games most likely, but even so, you just need to add a couple more bodies in that room. I don't think that Powell's going to be back. If I had to guess, he wasn't really good as a punt returner this year, and he didn't really add much in the receiver room either. So I would think that Jalen Nailor's.
I do worry about literally someone being able to catch a punt.
Yeah,
I really worry about that. And there was a time where. Well, even this year, when Powell went down, I think it was against the Packers game.
Yep, that's how they got their first touchdown.
Yeah,
Jalen Nailor was back there and muffed one over his head.
Yeah, I'm not wanting Nailor back there.
No.
Yeah, we would need somebody to return punts.
Addison can catch the ball.
His job.
Yeah, they should have had Addison back there. He worked on it in training camp. I don't know why he wasn't, but I agree with you. Punt returner is a need, and while we're on the subject, they got to figure out their special teams because it was not good this year. I don't know if Matt Daniels is the guy. Maybe he's not the guy, but they need to go back to the drawing board because their punt return technique sucks. I just don't think they value punt returns. I think they're like, just catch the damn ball. We'll take it where we catch it.
And
But they,
kickoff is just kick out of the back of the end zone, give them the ball at the
yes,
30.
yes, I agree.
Oh, To Evil Hope changes. Who is
Yeah.
that? Is that oh God. That's quarterback from used to be with the who am I thinking of? He used to be with Philly.
Carson Wentz.
Yeah, I think that's Carson Wentz in his
I
profile.
think so,
He's wanting to trade for him all the time.
Hmm.
Is that Carson Wentz, To Evil Hope? Returning with bad and blocking too. So yeah, I wasn't too happy with our special teams either. I was like, we didn't figure out this kickoff game. Other teams did. I felt punt return was non-existent. I felt like we didn't really return the ball very well. I was solid. We didn't fumble a lot except for that one, and that's because our guy was out.
I'd like a new punter. I don't like our punter.
But I hate messing with the holder though. But I mean,
we got a whole offseason to figure it out.
It was definitely an improvement from his last year. His last year sucked terribly.
He still can't pin people inside the 20
and that's what he was good at the first year. So it's like crazy. What's going on with that? Maybe we need a kicking, just like I've always wanted a run games coordinator to come in here. I've also wanted a kicking coach to come in here. So I think that would really help if we don't already. Yeah,
I think Reichard's going to be really good, man. I think Reichard's going to be really good. He got hurt, and that's when he kind of got shaky a little bit.
Fine with him.
But yeah, Too Evil to Hope kind of brought us to where we're going now. So going back to our conversation, we ranked our free agency needs. Dave and I both settled on the fact that we think shoring up your interior offensive line is the number one priority of this offseason for the reasons that we talked about. Protect J.J. McCarthy, establish the running game, allow the running backs to get some yards before contact, be able to score touchdowns in the red zone by running the football, lean on players inside the red zone, get that ball into the end zone. Stop making it so damn hard on yourself to try to throw everything. You know what I mean? It's so condensed on there. It's tough to throw touchdowns in the red zone. So Trey Smith, to me, it's a no-brainer. I think the Vikings should be all in on Trey Smith. He's 25, 26 years old. He's one of the best guards in the NFL. He's a huge guy, good pass blocker, good run blocker, good in space on screens. I don't see a downside. He's been healthy his entire career. Just go pay that guy, right? And there's going to be a lot of competition. Bears fans are all in on him. They think the Bears are going to go get him. The Patriots have a need at guard, and they have $100+ million in cap space, and they have a rookie quarterback that they're trying to protect in Drake May. There's going to be a lot of competition for Trey Smith. So, whoever pays him the most is probably where he's going to go because this guy's won 2 championships, maybe another one in a couple of weeks. So he's probably just looking for the money. I don't think the Chiefs are going to be able to afford him, honestly. I think he's going to be too expensive. So I think he does leave in free agency. So it's going to come down to, do the Vikings offer the bag? And if they tie the top offer, does he pick Minnesota over what I suspect to be most likely Chicago and New England as his as the primary bidders against us?
And Minnesota doesn't help with state income tax either. It's not a good thing. It's also
neither does Chicago or New England, though. Yeah.
So it's not like we have a advantage there, is what I'm saying.
No, well, I think the Vikings do have an advantage, and that's just the facilities and the coaching staff and how everything grades out. So if everything's equal, I do, and they won 14 games.
Yeah.
Now, I do think that free agents are going to want to come here. So,
well, I feel the same way about that. Facilities, coaching, ownership, we're a destination franchise. You'll hear me say that till my grave right now.
Yeah,
but I was just referring to economically. If there's a tie, we're not at an advantage there when it comes to, income tax. Like what happened with Hill going to Florida instead of staying in Kansas City.
Right. There are people out there who say, the Vikings have never really, spent this much on guards. I don't think they're going to start now. And my comeback to that is the Vikings have never had this much money to spend, right? And I've never heard a coach who never throws players under the bus, by the way, come out immediately after the game and say, we got to fix this shit. That can't happen. That's bad. We got to fix that. And then the GM shared that sentiment just a few days later in their exit interviews when he said, yes, I agree. We got to fix the interior offensive line. There's a lot of ways to do it. We'll see how we're going to do it. Right?
Yeah, I mean, O'Connell was more obviously diplomatic, and I know he was misquoted. One, they said he used the word interior line when he said interior pocket, meaning, how are we going to fix keeping the quarterback clean in the pocket, basically. He didn't say when the initial thing came out, he didn't say that. It was literally I forget the reporter. I think it was it Sports Illustrated or ESPN, I think. I forget his
Seifert?
name.
Kevin Seifert? Yeah.
Yeah, he said interior line. And I'm like, no, he said interior pocket. Just be a little more specific, please. But yeah, he didn't really call him out individually. But yeah, he could have you could have took that from that. I could definitely see. So yeah, he knows. He knows.
Yeah.
You can't run the ball.
Let me ask you this and everybody in the comments this. If I had to offer you a couple scenarios. Scenario number one, you keep Bradbury, all right, and you get Trey Smith as your right guard. And that means that you're going to rock and roll next year with either Walter Rouse as your left guard or Blake Brandel as your left guard next to Christian Darrisaw. Would you rather have that scenario, or would you rather get a couple guys like Dolman from Atlanta, the top center available, and Will Fries or Kevin Zeitler or Will Fries, by the way, is a younger guy, but some of these other guys, like Zeitler's an older guy. He's like a 1-year rental, or Brandon Scherf or Zach Martin, like these older guys who are like rentals. If I offered you that scenario where you overhaul at least 2 of the 3 positions, would you rather take the stud, or would you go with trying to eliminate weak links altogether and revamp the entire interior offensive line?
I mean, I wouldn't mind having, again, injuries can happen. You get a big stud and he gets hurt. Now you lost that guy and you just paid 20 some million for him. So I do believe that our GM is very economic and cost conscious when it comes to getting players. Now he has given the bag to our players, but the guys he just signed last year for agency, we felt we got a deal on all those players, and I even felt like that when we got them. Like I'm thinking, oh my God, Greener, that type of production. I was expecting 23 million a year, and then he got 19.
Mm-hmm.
So that was like great. And then our outside linebacker we paid 10 for. What the hell? How do you do that? So it's almost like, and he didn't go in on Kirk. So it's like he's really cost conscious. He's going to draw a line. That's going to be too much money for him, that kind of thing. Am I thinking he'll go out and get a right guard, pay 23 million? I'm leaning no. But if he sees a value in it, like maybe the market's really spiked, then yeah. But yeah, it's just tough. I just feel like he likes to get the value, and if he can get 2 guys instead of 1, he's going to go get 2 guys instead of 1. That's just me thinking of him, not necessarily what I want, but that's me thinking what I think of him.
Mm-hmm. I could see this both ways. I could see a player like Trey Smith, who's a plug and play guy for 4 to 5 years, because what they've really been doing is they've married a lot of the contracts with these players through the JJ contract, right? A lot of people are signed through 2029, and the coach included with that. So I could see them going after a young player and just sign him to a 4 or 5 year contract through the length of the JJ contract and keep this window open. I could also see them doing an older player, but here's the issue with an older player like Zeitler or Scherf or the other guy, Zach Martin, is that you really want to sign someone that you have faith in playing for at least the next 2 years, right? So you're probably looking at a 3-year deal. Zeitler's already 35. I don't think you're signing him to a 3-year deal. Zach Martin and Brandon Scherf are also up there, 34, 35 years old.
Yeah, Zach Martin's 34 already. Jeez.
Yeah, that's going to be
wanting to trade. I was remembering. I was being asked about back in the day. It was like Jesus, 12 years ago, or 11, 12 years ago. I was being asked, what would you want to trade for Adrian Peterson? And it was a Dallas Cowboy fan. I was like, yeah, you got to give me Zach Martin. And I remember wanting him so bad. But yeah.
And the reason I say that is because you look at the window, right? We're not just signing these guys to compete next year. We're looking for somebody who's going to protect JJ McCarthy for the next 2 or 3 years, right? So for those reasons, I think that they will be in on Trey Smith, or they will be in on Will Fries, who's a younger guy. I think he's 26, had a really good season before he went down to injury. I think he broke his leg. So, his market is going to be devalued a little bit compared to Trey Smith. I think he's projected like $13 million a year for Will Fries. Very good player from the Colts. So I'd be happy with that guy as long as Will Fries comes with another guy like the center from Atlanta.
Another angle of this is, he's thinking years ahead too, right? And you're saying 2-3 years, getting a Trey Smith and then going, okay, I'm gonna have more draft picks next year.
Yeah.
Let me get through this and get the piece that I'm gonna have for 5 years, married with Darisaw, maybe
And
milk every
O'Neal.
last bone out of O'Neal. And then I go get these other 3 guys, and then in 3 years I'm drafting a right tackle, or I'm drafting, maybe I'm up in Darisaw again and drafting a right tackle. I don't know. That just could be that situation.
Yeah. So for those reasons, I think that it is likely the Vikings are going to make a really big bid to Trey Smith, because it makes sense with their timeline to just fix this position and pay the dude, in my opinion. I totally understand your counterpoints, and that's the counterpoint that I've heard a lot, is that it doesn't seem like it's in Kwesi's best interest to dump all that money into a right guard, but it makes a lot of sense for this Vikings offense because they were really held back by their ability to run the football in the red zone, their ability to protect up the middle. And Kevin O'Connell just got a new contract extension. We have yet to hear an extension for Kwesi, although it's coming. Just tells you that Kevin O'Connell is going to have some weight to throw around now, right? He's going to need that fixed. They're going to spend some money on this offensive line this offseason.
And I know, I think Vikings Nation, or I forget the name of it, said that it looks like Kwesi 2-year extension or whatever. And someone goes, "Oh, that's just well, he actually worked for the Vikings at one point.
Mm-hmm.
So he does know some people still with the Vikings.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't discard that. That Kwesi's, it's looking like a 2-year extension. I wouldn't throw that just because his name's not Wolfson. It's just there's people out there, and he doesn't advertise it, but yeah, he had a person. I've interviewed him one time, and he had worked for and I think he lives in Denver now or something like that. He did work for the Vikings at one point.
Dan brings up a good point. He says the other plan, the Vikings could trade down more this year, get more picks coming out of the first round. I totally agree with that. We're actually going to talk about that in a little while when we start talking about some of the names on Renner's recent article, which highlighted the top 50 players on his big board going into this draft. And there's several good options for the Vikings on there that I wanted to touch on. Dylan, what's up, dude? Skull, baby. But so we spent a lot of time talking about the offensive line, defensive tackle a bit. We talked about cornerback. And my question to you is, I want to shift focus now on the running backs, because the running backs had some blame as well regarding the run game. Again, that this is something that Phil talked about today on the show on Score North, that the Vikings were almost last in the league in forced tackles and yards after contact, which is a running back stat. So, I mean, Aaron Jones looked spry, looked quick to start the season, and then he just broke down because he's not a big dude, and they gave him a ton of touches. Cam Akers looked like he was getting better towards the end of the season, actually looked better than Aaron Jones by the end of the season, But it's clear to me that they got to add to that room. And at this point, I don't think you can expect anything from Ty Chandler. I think that it just is what it is, and they don't trust him. So what are your thoughts on the running back room? And do you want to bring back Aaron Jones?
So let's shout out to Vocal Vikes crew that came and air raided us. Thanks for showing up, guys. Thanks for bringing everybody rap. Yeah, talking about the so I was the guy that wanted Derrick Henry last year. So and obviously Barkley would have been nice too. But yeah, we definitely need to bring someone in or draft but I don't know what the free agents look like. I haven't really went after that yet. I don't know if there's going to be as big a free agent class as running backs as it was last year. That was ridiculous. I do feel like re-signing him would be good. I don't necessarily want to pay the same amount. I think we're going to try to get him at even a bigger discount. 5 million or whatever. I think we paid him 7, but he did. I don't. I was a big Ty Chandler fan, but he just can't block anybody. It seems like that's what the deal is. And these other running backs can. I'm all good. I'm good about bringing Cam Akers back. I like him. I think he's solid, and he's the only guy that seems to break long ones now. So I do think he's a complete back. They'd be nice little safety nets if we don't get the big back, right? I feel like they're competent enough, they're cheap enough, they're older. That's why they're cheap enough. And one company, they're injury prone in their career. I'm definitely all in on getting a big back. I was last year. I was pleasantly surprised we did get somebody that was as good as we got in Aaron Jones. I was worried more about him when we played the Packers than I was about Dylan. And he did make now give that guy some lanes, and we might be talking about, holy shit, we need to re-sign him and give him 10 million. If we gave him some lanes. So we may just have a resurgence from Hades. And this is honestly, this is the most carries he's ever had
right
in his career was last year with us. So give that guy some lanes, and maybe we might have a big breakout year from Aaron Jones, or a resurgence.
Yeah,
Even though he's going to be 31 probably, I think now. Or he was 29 going on 30, I think. But yeah, I definitely all in on getting a good running back.
Signing Aaron Jones scares me because, like you said, we did give him a ton of carries, the most that he's ever carried, and he was breaking down at the end of the season. So if you bring him back, he definitely needs to be, in my opinion, like the RB2, or at least split carries with somebody, because we did rely on him way too much, in my opinion.
We just give more carries to Cam Akers, I felt,
But I would love to draft a rookie, and we'll get into some of these guys' names. The guys in the comments are already talking about some names here. I know it isn't popular, but we need to say bye to Cam Bynum. I'd like to look at Jordan Mason, Javonte Williams. I also think Cousins is going to take money away from Darnold this offseason. So I actually think that Kirk Cousins is going to do what we saw Russell Wilson do with the offset contract language, and probably sign with the Browns and go visit Kevin Stefanski and basically play for nothing and allow the Falcons to pay his salary, just like we saw Russell Wilson do. That's my thought process.
That's my number one probably destination for him, and exactly what you just said. And there was talk that they would cut him before whatever date to save a $10 billion bonus or something like that.
But even if Kirk hits the open market, I think that Sam Darnold is going to get signed first and going to get much more money than Kirk gets, because he's a better quarterback at this time. So I kind of disagree with that point. But to his first point about saying bye to Cameron Bynum, I feel very strongly about this, that I agree. I don't love Cameron Bynum's physicality in the run game. I think he takes poor angles that we've seen in the Lions games a couple of times, where Gibbs has scored long touchdowns because of poor angles from him. He is a very good center fielder, but I just feel confident in Theo Jackson's role coming up, playing more, that Harrison Smith is likely going to retire. But even if Harrison comes back one more year, I think that Theo can play more. And then you have Metellus coming back, and he can play more safety, and you can actually slip Dallas Turner more into that Josh Metellus role where he can play more stand-up linebacker / rusher and kind of be your new Joker role all over the place. But I agree. I just think that Bynum's going to command too much money for what I'm willing to pay him, and I'd rather replace him and pay a corner.
Yeah, Bynum, I think he's good for the team, as a a captain or as a just
Hell of a guy.
Yeah, it's a good guy to have, and it's the same way with Harrison Smith. All these guys are good guys that have, and it's like they all have their little niche. Tellus with Metellus, he got his little niche where hey, you can't get rid of me. I got my own damn show on Vikings Network. Or you got Cam Bynum doing the dances, It's like all these guys wanting to have their little niche of why the fans love me and you got to keep me. So it's almost like you feel really bad that Cam Bynum is not he's not elite by any means, but he's been good for us. And there was when we first started noticing him, it was in short spurts, getting a pick here and there, and then he became a starter and he was pretty solid. But when Harrison Smith was out in 2022, Bynum was just getting beat. And then he comes back and now he's a leader. He's showing a little more maturity. He's the guy doing the film study. He's the one helping everybody out. So it is a leadership point and in the camaraderie in the locker room and that team atmosphere. He's a big part of that. It'd be tough to let him go, but if he prices himself out of what he's actually is as a player, I'm not going to cry if he's gone. But I'll always think he's a Viking.
Yeah, a great dude. Love what he stands for. With everything he does, with the heritage and whatnot, being from the Philippines and getting his wife into the United States, getting her a visa, that was awesome.
Yeah,
and
he had 2 picks or something like that.
Yeah, wish nothing but the best for him, but I just think that to your point, I think he will price himself out of Minnesota. And like I said, I'd rather spend the money on a defensive tackle or a corner defensively rather than that safety position. And Dan said that the Vikings have a Bynum replacement already. I agree with that. I think that there is a guy behind him, and like I said, you can kind of shift Metellus all over the place, and Dallas Turner is going to be much more active, and I do think he's going to be more of a Joker role than just your pure defensive end. So
Theo Jackson.
What'd I say?
Well, you just said Josh Metellus.
Oh yeah, but so Josh Metellus and Theo Jackson are probably your 2 safety options back there if Harrison Smith retires and if Cam Bynum goes, right?
Yeah, I think Theo could play Bynum's role better than the Metellus could. Metellus has been known to get beat. Like they've game planned receivers on Metellus, and it seems like every time that happens, someone gets past him, and I'm a little worried about that. But
yeah, he was
think
responsible for that long Tennessee touchdown, that 95
yarder.
And
when we played, I think we played Tampa 2 years ago. He got burnt right away. Of course, it was future Hall of Famer on him, but I just feel in spots where he had to cover a receiver 1-on-1. It wasn't a very successful outing for him. So I like him staying in his role he is in right now. And the occasional getting burnt is because it was just a mismatch and the game planned for it. But he's good in his role, and he led us in tackles, right? So he's definitely good. But again, I think Theo Jackson's more of the Bynum role.
Yeah, no, I agree with you for sure. Let's jump into Mike Renner's article here and talk some draft.
What's up, Barber?
Mike Renner, although he's a Packers fan, is one of the best NFL draft guys that you can read. I have his @ right here. It's on Twitter. You can find him at Mike Renner with an underscore at the end of the name. And if you look like 7 tweets down, there's an article, or you can go to my page, and it's the first thing that I have retweeted there. And the first defensive tackle player that he has rated is Mason Graham at number 4, who's going to be taken top 10, and he's not an option for the Vikings. But when you scroll down to his 8th overall player, he has Walter Nolan there, who's a defensive lineman from Ole Miss. And so I've been getting into the draft process here, looking at some guys, getting familiar with the defensive tackle names. And this guy's kind of a late bloomer in terms of getting notice for being an explosive defensive tackle who can rush the passer. But I was very surprised when I saw that he was rated in the top 10 for Mike Renner's prospects. And Renner writes, he says, Walter Nolan is explosive, flexible, and only scratching the surface of his potential. He's a plug-and-play run defender who can get in opposing backfields with ease. What I love most about projecting his game to boost him into my top 10 is his ability to finish plays in space for a defensive tackle. So he's incredibly athletic. He's slippery. He's got pass rush moves, and he's a good run defender. And this is a guy right now who's projected right around the Vikings pick. So you'll have to watch out for teams like the Bengals who pick right before the Vikings in the late teens. But if there's a real chance that this guy's there at 24, and right now I think he's my leading candidate that I would like this guy to be a Viking. If it gets to that point where the Vikings are on the board at 24, I think I would turn his card in. Now, Dan said earlier in the comments that the Vikings are probably looking to trade down in this draft, and I agree. But there's certain players that should not be there at that pick, and we're going to talk about a few of those players right now. I think Walter Nolan's one of those players where I'd have a tough time moving down if this kind of stud who can provide interior rush is available.
And from my exhaustive research on Walter Nolan, which is about 2 minutes of video before we jumped on the channel, I'm gonna be honest with you. Yeah, he's not the big nose tackle, everybody screams for, but he is a up and down the line type guy. He's gonna play the defensive end in the 3-4. He could be an outside rusher too. I have no problem with him being on the outside of that line, wide. I think he's very versatile. He definitely is a run stop. Plays good run. He's read and react. The guy has great recognition. Just always seeing his eyes in the backfield. He seems to have intuition of where guys are going to be when our play is. If he doesn't see him, he just seems to show up. But there is penetration. This guy has penetration, much like we saw when we what the hell, Redmond? Where'd that come from? There's penetration with this guy, and I do think it matches up with Florida's defense. I think he's long. I don't have his measurements. He hasn't gone to the NFL Combine yet, but 293, 6'3". I think he's longer than that. He's not 6'4", 6'5" guy, but I do think he's longer than that, and he would be a steal. I think at where are we, 23 or 24?
24.
24. He'd be a steal at 24. So I don't think he's going to make it there, but yeah, he'd be a steal at 24. You turn that card in.
So you said 6'3", like 295, somewhere in there. So he's heavier than guys like Kalijah Kancey. That's kind of who I thought of right away when I watched his tape, was that he was just knifing through the line, kind of like Kalijah Kancey does for the Tampa Bay Bucks. Like he wins quickly, but he's heavier.
This guy's got an anchor. I think he withstands run blocking quite well. I mean,
right.
He doesn't get blown off the ball for sure. He stands his ground, and then he when he does get loose, like out of a gun, he shoots at that quarterback to get after him, or the running back. He really can get in there.
Yeah, so this is a guy to keep an eye on. Really exciting prospect who I think has a chance of being there at 24. Moving down our list,
and I'm never wrong.
Number 14 on his list, safety by the name of Malachi Starks. And this is a player who Daniel Jeremiah mocked to the Vikings in his first mock draft just a week ago or so. And I was kind of tweeting at him being like, yeah, like I don't know if I can see the Vikings doing this, another safety from Georgia, just out of like the optics of the situation, right? Because that was Kwesi's first pick, was a safety out of Georgia, and Lewis Seen absolutely did not work out. But Starks is a completely different player. This is like a faster Brian Branch. Starks is a player who can play corner. He can play slot. He can play safety. He can play linebacker. You put him anywhere on the defense, he's fast enough to stay with people. He can tackle. He's a smart player. He was projected as a top 10 pick a year ago because he had just a phenomenal season. This last year, from what I read, he didn't make like as many splash plays, but some of that was probably just the offensive, trying to avoid such a dominant player. So this is a player where if he was on the board at 24, I don't think he should be there. And so I do think it would be a steal. So like I wouldn't hate it just because you're adding a hell of a defensive piece and versatile player to the defense. I think that Vikings fans would hate it because they see that it's another safety in the first round and they would just lose their minds. But I would caution everybody to say, hey, if I said you could have Brian Branch right now on this team, would we take Brian Branch? And by the way, he's faster and better in man coverage than Brian Branch. I'd say, yeah, I'll take that.
So this guy can cover.
Mm-hmm.
He showed he could do that. I seen him jump routes. He tackles really well. Why I agree with you is because I felt right after the draft, Lewis Seen and Kwesi together. I felt Kwesi seemed to draft people who he had connections with, and he would always talk to them, just like that song we talked about when we met, and then the heritage of Lewis Seen, and he felt like he seems to draft guys with connections, and I felt like it almost he wanted to get Seen, but he knew he had to get lower in the draft to reason in his mind to pick him, and that's why I felt why he picked Lewis Seen. And if you go back and look at videos of him, talking with the new guy, the new draft pick that came in, you're always talking about the song they talked about, or the song that he said he most he associates himself with. I just want him to get away from that connection crap and just go off sheer freaking talent. And I think they'll go a long way of, hey, looking at a guy I can connect with looking for a guy that just plays freaking football. And Malachi Starks does play football. The game looked slow, slowed down for him, but he had ball skills. He jumps in front of, routes. He tackles well. He's a good player.
Really good player. I will say that when the 2022 draft happened, the defensive coordinator was Ed Donashell. Okay. And I think that Brian Flores, one of the best things that Brian Flores does is he identifies talent. He's very, very good at it. And Brian Flores is going to be the leader in the clubhouse in terms of being in Kwesi's ear, saying, this is what I'm looking for. This kid has it. This is what we want. Okay. So I have much more confidence in selecting defensive players now with Flores as our defensive coordinator than I did with that Donashell. Okay. So that's first and foremost has to be said. But I agree with you. Malachi Starks, if he's the pick at 24, I'd be very happy guy. Going down our list here, who's the next guy you have?
Well, you had Will Johnson.
Booker, Will Johnson. I think that was a mistake. I think I meant to put so if you go down the list farther, there's Benjamin Morrison, who's a guy who will be on the Vikings list to target.
I don't have him.
Do I have Tyler Booker on your list?
Yes.
Okay. So
and that's our thumbnail. So
okay. Number 20 on Mike Renner's list, Tyler Booker. And we've talked about him a bit. He's the gigantic guard. Mammoth of a dude. Huge dude. Renner writes, Tyler Booker is a brick wall in pass protection. When defensive tackles try to overpower him, they end up going nowhere. While he's not the most fleet of foot, Booker's always on balance and able to mirror quicks on the interior. In addition to that, and this is me talking, not Renner, in the power run game, when he's got a guy on top of him, he's going to move him 3, 4, 5 yards back. So you're going to get a lot out of him in the run game. But he's not a perfect marriage for the stretch zone run game. Okay, he's not the best mover in space because he's a freaking mammoth of a human being. It's the same idea as the Mekhi Becton thing in Philly, right? He's awesome when a guy's over on top of him and moving bodies in the run game, but he's not a dude that's going to get out there and block well in space. So this is a guy I would not mind drafting Booker at all, but I'd like a trade down first. I would like to move back, get a couple more picks, and hopefully get Booker somewhere near the back of the first round or even somewhere in the top of the second round. And then use the pick that you get for one of the running backs.
Now, I did see a couple of plays that he did pull, which is promising. But he is just, and I felt this about Ed Ingram. Ed Ingram could move people when he came out of college. He's not as nearly as big as Booker is, but Booker just looks easy for him to push people around and just finish people. In Darisaw, when I saw him come out of college, I was like, this guy's not a finisher. What's the deal here?
No.
He's going to be good, but he became one in the pros, right?
Mm-hmm.
Now Tyler Booker's already got that, so that's good. We want a running game so bad that if we have one guard that just is a badass run blocker, let's do it. It's like pull the trigger. But it does make sense. Do you really want to spend a pick that high on a right guard or left guard? He played right guard in college, it looks like. So yeah, that would be an optimal situation if we trade down and still got him.
But he's NFL ready in terms of strength.
Oh yeah.
So
100% strength is in spades.
Yeah.
In spades.
So he's going to come in and where most rookie offensive linemen are really going to struggle, I think he could play pretty well his first year. I think he's NFL ready.
You had a D lineman you sent me, Derek Harmon from Oregon.
Okay, Derek Harmon, 15 on the list. This is a guy that I'm not very familiar with, but Renner writes, few have raised their stocks as much as Derek Harmon this past fall. There's really not much to dislike about his tape. He's got the kind of versatile body type to play any technique on the interior while also being effective against both the run and the pass. So another defensive tackle. This guy's rated ahead of other guys I really like in the class, and I don't know anything about him. So I wanted to just throw his name out here so we can do some more research and learn more about him.
Well, I did watch about 5 minutes of his tape, and he's a big dude, long, but he stands up people. He's not.
Mm-hmm.
Is it Carter that we had with the DN? I don't know if he's still on our team because I know someone tried to pick him up from with the Army. I think what was his name? Was it Carter?
I know you're talking about. He was the long, lanky kid.
So he has that body, but more meat on him. And
this dude's 300 pounds. He's way bigger than that Army kid.
That's what I'm saying. But he's long like him, but meat on him already. So I felt like it would be, and I do agree with that he could play nose tackle. He could play down the line. He could put even more mass on him.
Yeah, he's 6'5", 310.
So I was thinking
he's a load.
20, 330, still be super effective and be potentially that nose tackle guy that we had. He did look pretty dominant. He had a motor on him. He wasn't as quick as the guy we spoke of earlier, Walter
Nolan.
But he could be really big. He could get really big, and I think he's effective run, and he's not going to be a penetrator or whatever, but he's going to clog up that interior. I felt
for sure. What's the next name you got there?
Well, you had the Will Johnson from Michigan. It looked like a very dominant cornerback.
He's going to be gone by the time.
Yeah, I just assumed he'd be gone.
But Benjamin Morrison is the other corner from Notre Dame. Now,
which you didn't give to me, but go ahead.
He's the 28th. He's the 28th overall prospect. And he's a corner that the Vikings. He should be there, I think, at 24 because he had a hip injury end of season. But this is a guy who was pushing top 10, top 15 if he did not get injured. So very good man cover corner. Let's see what Renner has to say. He's some of the best man mirror tape of any corner in the class. Unfortunately, he's also coming off a season-ending hip injury that could scare away some teams. I'm still betting on the talent who picked off 6 passes as a 18-year-old freshman in 2022. So young guy, uber talented, man-to-man capability, but you got to do your homework on the hip injury.
Yeah, definitely. And that'll come out that'll come out at the combine, so you might see him there, and whether or not he participates. And of course, they'll get the medicals on him. But a hip injury might be a guy that they're in the third round because people are worried about him, right? And
Yeah,
see that all the time.
Yeah, it could be a guy that falls, but if the Vikings clear him from an injury standpoint and decide to take him at 24, fine by me because he's a hell of a talent. So we'll see what they do there. The next guy I have on the list at 29 is another defensive tackle, Kenneth Grant from Michigan. Kenneth Grant is a physical freak who holds over 330 pounds with ease. While you might think that makes him a nose tackle, his first step plays anywhere along the defensive line. So he's big and he's quick. So I think that's 5 defensive tackles, rushing defensive tackles, that Renner has in the top 30 of his list here. Just an incredibly top-heavy and deep defensive tackle rushing class. And some of these guys are going to be available at 24.
I'm literally looking at him right now. He's a very thick dude.
Mm-hmm.
Very thick. Yeah, I could see it. He's not as long as some of the 2 guys that we talked about, but he is definitely a massive dude. And yeah, I think size-wise, he'd be pretty suited for a nose tackle. Yeah, he's a big dude, and looks like he's pretty, bottom heavy. You know what I'm saying? I think he has that ability to push the pocket. I'm seeing some right now. He just collapsed the pocket. Yeah, he looks like a good dude. I didn't have that on. I don't think you didn't send that one to me.
Yeah, I didn't send you all of them, but going down to 33 on the list, Deion Walker, defensive lineman from Kentucky. He's a unique specimen, writes Renner. He's one of the tallest defensive tackles I've ever seen. He's over 6'7", and he's 345 pounds. At that size, he's incredibly nimble. He moves very well. He just can't hold up to double teams or play as many snaps as Kentucky asked him to do. He's still only 20 years old, so this kid's young, and he has time to figure it out. So he was projected to be potentially a top 10 pick based on his traits. The problem is that he runs really hot and cold because of his pad level being 6'7", and defensive tackle. Offensive linemen do get underneath him, stand him up, and he doesn't generate a lot of push here and there. But when he's on, he's unblockable. So if you can unleash, the talent that he has, you're talking about an absolute monster. Who's the other guy, the Colt? Was it DeForest Buckner, who was like 6'6", 6'7" as a defensive tackle? Just unblockable. I'm pretty sure it was DeForest Buckner. That's my comp for this guy. Some
traits that I saw in him is that he does have a pass rush. He has a spin move, but it's quick. It's like, how they talk about, like Danielle Hunter had this spin move, or, just there's guys with spin moves. He has one. My issue when I saw him playing is he looks winded after every play. And one of the plays highlights is like he's like calling to get him off the field, and he I don't know how conditioned he is, and of course that could change in the NFL. You're year-round playing. The nutrition's better there, that kind of thing. So I'm not too worried about that. That's a red flag, but not too bad. Just because I think with the NFL will change, but I don't know him. This is a guy I want to make sure that I watch a bunch of interviews of him and how he was interviewed. Because if he's like nonchalant about everything, I'm a little more worried about him. But the pad level is probably the bigger thing, like you said. He does stand up quite a bit and doesn't, and that's why he has a spin move, I think.
But he's a specimen. He's a guy where
he's down, huge dude.
If you trade down to the second and take him, I'm ecstatic because I would love to mold that ball of clay. I don't know if it makes sense as much for the Vikings though, because there is some risks to him, and I really feel like we need to hit on this draft, and we need to hit on this guy. So it's like we need a more pro-ready type player, in my opinion. This guy might need a year, of really molding him into what he's going to be.
And for me, I'm like, I don't know if he plays right away. You know, I'm like,
Yeah.
I really want finally to have a guy like
he might be like a third down pass specialist for a while.
Yeah, could be because I mean, like I said, he does get to he does have a spin move, and he's quick.
He's intriguing. He's a fun one to watch and to think about. And then to wrap up the list, at number 18, there's Ashton Genty. So we know about him. He's incredible. I don't think he's going to be there for the Vikings. His absolute floor is probably 20 to Denver. I don't see the Vikings getting him, but I did just want to throw out there that he's number 18 on the list. And then scrolling down, looking for the other running back on his list, I thought it would have been Caleb Johnson, who I'm very high on from Iowa. It wasn't. It was Dylan Sampson, running back from Tennessee. He says he has elite ability to consistently find the right crease, and when he does, the undersized running back hits it at full speed consistently. He overcame poor run blocking to produce in the SEC. So that's a guy's name to think of. Earlier in the comments, someone threw out the Ohio State running back who I really like, Travion Henderson. I've seen some comps to Dalvin Cook from him, so that's interesting. Dylan Sampson, running back from Tennessee, is getting some love here by Renner. And Caleb Johnson, I absolutely love from Iowa. I would recommend watching some highlights from him. But it just goes to show you this is a deep running back class. And if the Vikings, I think they're going to get a good one if they pick one in round 3. But I do think there's a high likelihood the Vikings trade down with that first pick in the first round and pick up like an extra third round pick. Maybe take a running back like Caleb Johnson in the second round, but they're going to get one at some point.
Yeah, my worry about the Iowa running back is he doesn't. I think he lacks top end speed. Like I'm a little worried about that because Alexander Madison. I felt like it was like Alexander Madison.
You're right.
You look at his college tape and stuff.
He's going to have to run well at the combine. That is, but people expect him to though. I've seen that they're expecting him to run 4.5, which should be good for him.
Yeah. But as far as being able to carry the rock, I felt like he was definitely solid, and hits the hole fast. He can. It's just pulling away. He's not gonna necessarily run away from guys chasing him, cornerbacks and stuff.
Right.
So he might get caught down every once in a while. He's not. Dalvin Cook could 4.37 would break away, and I don't know if he's that type of player, but he is definitely a good running back, and I wouldn't mind having him.
Right.
I think he'd probably end up being better than Alexander Madison, but
to wrap up the show, I did want to say, I think it was, it might have been Daniel Jeremiah who just tweeted this out today, but somebody said that with this draft, picks 20 through like 60 are the same picks. Like the talent dispersion in that area, it might have even been like 30 to 90 or something like that. Essentially, there's going to be a lot of good players in the second and third round.
Might go to the fourth too, because a lot of if you got 60 players there, it's like, not everybody thinks the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
And players do drop that we probably are higher on, that we might have felt were second rounders or third rounders. It's eye of the beholder.
And that just made me think even more so that the Vikings are going to trade down. This really feels like a year where the Vikings will trade out of the first round, in my opinion. So
you did put this guy in here, this Jihad Campbell, linebacker from Alabama.
That might have been I may have tried to take a screenshot of somebody else, and Jihad Campbell just got.
He just reminded me a lot of Blake Cashman.
So Jihad Campbell was a part of the Deion Walker chat that I tried to send you.
Okay.
Yeah, I wasn't really looking at linebackers.
I did. Well, you know how to if you take a picture, how to edit it and minimize it.
Yeah.
I put everybody that you sent.
I was doing this at work in between patients, so. But thank you for the hard.
I was like, why does he want an off the ball linebacker?
Yeah, exactly. No, I don't give a shit. All right, guys. So we're going to end the show there. Thank you for joining us. Super fun talk about free agency needs and some draft prospects. If you're looking for something next week that we can cover, just shoot us, a tweet and we'll bring it to the show. And if you're interested in joining us as a guest speaker and talking with us, then absolutely tweet us out. We're looking to get some guests on the show. We were supposed to have one tonight, but Steve from Texas let us down. I think there was some scheduling conflicts. It's all right, Steve. We still love you. All right, guys. Thanks for joining us. Skol.
Skol Vikes.